Focus of today's webinar is candidate and recruiter experience in Oracle. What is it? Why is it important? And really, why it should be the focus for pretty much, every organization out there hiring. It doesn't just have to be Oracle. It's, across multiple different platforms. But the point of it being is both candidate and recruiter experience are inherently linked. So with that said, today we're going to kind of jump into, as I said, today's focus is all about candidate and recruiter experience within Oracle. Things that we're going to be talking about. What is candidate experience? What is recruiter experience? What are the statistics that really define these pieces? What are the consequences of poor candidate experience? What are the consequences of poor recruiter experience? And what can be done in general? The goal is help streamline the hiring process. So, to start this out, if we start out talking about candidate experience, what is it? At the high level, it's how a job seeker themselves perceive a company's brand throughout the entire hiring process. Meaning, from the second they get onto your website to apply to a position, whether they've gone through it through an external job board that's redirected them there, or they've said, I've heard great things about this company, I want to work at this company, they go to apply. From that point, that candidate is creating a perception about your organization. What is recruiter experience? Recruiter experience is entire recruiting team, talent acquisition team, however you want to word that. It's their experience on, what it takes to find the right candidates, to get the most relevant candidates, to get them in, get them interviewed, and get them in, get them interviewed, and get them through the entire onboarding process. And that in itself, for those on this call that work the talent acquisition side, how much of a challenge that is. So what we're going to do, we're going to chat about both of these, how they're linked, in my opinion, why most importantly, it's important to focus on both of them. So we're going to kind of start this out, just a few statistics. So first and foremost, 76% of candidates prefer to apply through a company's career page. Plain, simple, easy. In other words, they'd rather go to that company's page, apply to the job there, rather than applying to it on, elsewhere on some career board that they found. Makes sense. But what's important about that is 95% of those candidates, their first experience with your organization, with your company, comes from a visit to your career site. So, candidate experience, the perception, how they perceive your company starts right then and there. Today's day and age, 80% is the typical applicant drop-off rate for most companies. That means that out of 100 candidates that are going onto your website to apply, or onto your career site to apply for a position, 80 of them are stopping halfway through that application process because it's too long, it's too drawn out, there's too many questions being answered or asked, too much of the process is manual, etc. Of those 80 individuals, 48% of them drop off because of that complicated process. I work with organizations around the world. And last year I was at Oracle Cloud World and speaking with a number of my clients. And one of the things that they pointed out, that their KPIs for 2023 were ensuring that the application process could be completed in 30 seconds or less. That was the KPIs that they themselves were holding themselves to for 2023. It fits because currently, the average candidate expects to take about 40 seconds to apply to a position. Every second after that drastically increases the chance that candidate is going to you're going to have applicant drop off. Probably, to me, one of the most important factors though is 70% of hiring companies, they force job seekers to go through a very complicated career site, but then fail to acknowledge their application. In today's day and age, communication is easy. There are many tools out there, automated texting, automated emailing, all of that. And part of that candidate experience is all about confirming, hey, we've received your application, we'll review it, we'll get back to you. And then actually, not only that first step, but then actually following up. All of that helps to promote a better candidate experience. But in my opinion, probably the most important part is the fact that it's easy for candidates to apply. when we live in a day and age where people can go to other websites, LinkedIn, etc., and hit easy apply and apply with one click, it's important. And having a long drawn out application process only hamstrings an organization. This is a picture I've been using. I saw it, a friend of mine sent it to me. I started laughing when I first saw it. Expectation versus reality. Anytime somebody goes to apply to a job, they expect, hey, upload their resume, answer a few questions, review the information, hit apply. I have seen so many different application processes where it's create an account, then upload your resume, and then spend 20, 30 minutes copying and pasting everything that was on your resume into the appropriate fields. Now, granted, it's important to get that information into those fields, because without it, talent acquisition team, the recruiting team, they're stuck with that information being loaded into those fields. They're able to run a much more efficient search process to find the most relevant candidates. But if you're expecting the candidate themselves to input all that information, now you have a serious issue, because your most relevant candidates, there's a good chance of, there's over an 80% chance of them dropping off, not completing the application. And so the whole goal is for the candidate experience side, you're focusing on branding your company. You're focusing on making it easy for them to apply to a position. But at the same time, in doing so, it leads directly to the recruiter experience side. So a couple things. Poor candidate experience. What are the consequences of it? As we said before, high applicant drop-off rate. They get frustrated. They've spent 20 minutes working on an application, and all of a sudden they're hitting, they're just closing out of that window, going to another website where they can hit easy apply. Lack of quality candidates. That kind of goes hand in hand with more or less lack of candidates. And poor company branding. I've seen some companies that have been leading edge of technology in their fields, but when it comes to their application process, it's completely manual. How does that brand, what type of perception does that give those candidates about working for that company? Oh, they're making the best things, but they can't even parse a resume. I'm having to fill it all out manually. More and more individuals leaning away from that. When they go to a website to apply to a position and it requires them to input a significant amount of information manually, they immediately leave that career site and go elsewhere. Now, what does this mean for the recruiters or for the company? First and foremost is going to be increased cost per hire. Because you have a lack of candidates coming in, now you're going to have to go to outside agencies, recruiting firms, in order to be able to fill those positions. That there increases not only the cost per hire per candidate, but it can also slow down the onboarding time. So not only is it a longer onboarding time, it's being a higher cost per hire, but more importantly, your recruiters are getting frustrated because now they've got a database of candidates that either A, they can't search properly. Searching becomes, instead of being able to do a relational database search where all the different fields of information on each candidate are searchable, now they're having to open up resumes one at a time. And I just saw a question come across real quick. I'll answer this. Is RChilli a preferred vendor with Oracle? Yes, we are. We are an Oracle partner. We are on the Oracle marketplace. But in kind of continuing back on to where I was going, when it comes to searching, if all of the information on each candidate is not in the appropriate fields on that candidate profile, searching becomes much harder. Now recruiters are having to one at a time open up a resume, review it, try to decide if that applicant's a right fit, should be shortlisted, whatnot, and then move to the next and move to the next. It lengthens their process. They might have 5, 10, 15 different job recs to fill, but now they're spending a significant amount of time just trying to review and find those candidates. If we take it a step further and recruiters are having to manually input the information from the resume into those fields in the database, well, at that point, what you're looking at is a significant amount of data entry. I believe the average is it takes about 15 minutes for a recruiter to enter, all the information from a candidate's resume into a database. If we do simple math and say this recruiter makes, $40,000 a year, $20 an hour, 15 minutes is $5. So it costs $5 per candidate to get those candidates fully populated within that database. Now you're finally able to start searching as, was intended within whatever ERP, ATS, candidate solution that you're utilizing. But all of that work that gets front loaded has slowed everything down even further. Things that you can do, first and foremost, my goal with this webinar, this is not me trying to do a product sale. It's more getting everybody just kind of aware of the issues with candidate experience and recruiter experience in today's marketplace. The most successful companies that I see right now, they're automating as much of their application process as possible. I've seen clients that literally the information that they're getting is upload the resume, confirm first name, last name, address, email, and phone number are correct, answer a few questions. And that's it for the application. It's done in seconds. The key part behind it, though, is when it's done correctly, all of that information from that candidate's resume is automatically populating all of the fields within whatever database it's being loaded into. And the recruiters are then able to actively and effectively search across their database of candidates, find the most relevant candidates, get them in for interviews, get them onboarded as quickly and easily as possible. We've seen with our clients who are utilizing solutions to enhance the candidate experience, they're seeing a drastic decrease, not only in application times. So the question is are people able to get under 40 seconds? The answer to that is absolutely. The tricky parts that I see in today's day and age right now, more so when you're using a technology to help get that resume information populated, the trickiest parts are based around all the qualifiers, disqualifiers, and EEOC questions that are being answered or asked on an application. At that point, those end up taking longer than the rest of the application. One of the pieces of terminology that I hear all the time is non-biased hiring, non-biased recruiting. And that is one of those pieces that it's really a hot button right now. And it's something that many organizations are looking into. Every single piece of this starts with the candidate experience. That candidate experience bleeds, making it easy for applicants to apply, making it easy for them to apply to those positions, get communication back, but more importantly, have all of the relevant information loaded into the database so that the recruiters can then quickly search and find those candidates. And depending on the solution that you're working on, some of them allow you to block recruiters' ability to see names, university names, educational institutions, company names, to go for that non-biased recruiting as much as possible, to where you're recruiting just based on skill. All of it is tied together, though. Improving recruiter experience. First and foremost, being able to normalize all the information from every candidate's resume to a standardized format. One of the pieces I always like to mention is I work with HR directors in companies around the world. And probably one of the funniest things is when you sit back and think of how many different ways can you say HR director. I had an Excel spreadsheet that literally had 400 plus HR director titles. But if I did a Control F and searched for HR space director, it only returned 16 results. If I did H.R. space director, it returned another, 18, I believe? Because there's so many different ways that you can say the same thing. So Director of Human Resources, Human Resource Director, Human Resources Director, etc. Having all that information normalized prevents the recruiters from having to create an expanded Boolean search of I'm looking for an HR director or a human resource director or human resources director. That normalization is key because that leads right into the ability to quickly give the recruiters the ability to find the most relevant candidates, allows them to quickly fill those positions and ensure that with all of that data being populated in there, they can now run searches. Depending on the technologies that you use, there are technologies out there that will allow you to actually run a search of, hey, I need an HR director with at least 8 years of experience. And it will return those results based on the skills in that candidate's resume and the skills and the information that was extracted. The key thing to understand is, for me, everything starts at the candidate experience level. The goal is make it as easy as possible for applicants to apply, but be as effective and efficient as possible so that the recruiters are able to deal with all of the information from the applicant's resume. They're able to easily search, sort, filter through, find the most relevant candidates for those positions, communicate with them, get them in for interviews, get them hired, get them onboarded. The end goal is happier candidates, better company branding, and happier recruiters. They're able to actually, their job is more about finding the relevant candidates rather than data entry or becoming an absolute search guru. We've come to the end of our 30 minutes. It was a pleasure speaking with everybody. I hope you were able to get some good information from today's call.